All right, welcome back, crime fighters, for another edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted, the program where you get to help make Calhoun County a better and safer place by helping us lock up the bad guys. I'm Chris Wright, along with Calhoun County Sheriff Matthew Wade. Good to see you, Sheriff.
Always good to be on the show, Chris.
All right, it looks a little bit different today.
Yeah, trying something new. I like it. You know, a lot of people don't like change, but I like a little change.
The set's been the same for many years, but today we can actually, our feet can touch the ground now.
Which is good, because the floor gets a little slick sometimes when you're in those big chairs and roll around. So, while we're not on camera, it can be fun but dangerous.
Yeah, it's good to be in control of where you're sitting. It's also good to be in control of your vehicle, which has been a little bit of a difficulty here lately with all the rain that we've had. This has not been normal flooding situation in Calhoun County.
No, we've had a lot of rain, and I'm trying to build a house, so I think I'm responsible for all this rain, so we can't build a house when it's raining like this. But one thing people don't realize, that they still got to get places, and they still go just as fast, and they still act like they're driving just normal. And when it's raining, you got to slow down. Mm-hmm. Your traction's not as good. And one thing is when roads are covered with water, people still try to pass them. I don't know why they do, but they do, you know, whether in a truck or in a car. But just last week, we had several vehicles, when it was raining real bad, get washed away. And you think, well, that didn't happen in Calhoun County. Yes, it did. We had several vehicles that tried to pass over a roadway that was covered in water. The water floated their vehicle into the ditch, and they had to get pulled out.
You think it's inconvenient to have to turn around and find another road? That's some inconvenience right there, and possibly very hazardous to your health also.
Hazardous to your health, and at the very least, it's going to ruin your vehicle. And even if it doesn't ruin it, it'll have that mildew smell. So. And
we've got more than just water on some of the roads too. We've even had mudslide issues.
On the way down here today, I saw a mudslide on Quintard. People were out there looking at it, and it didn't get in the roadway, but you could see where the mud had slid down in the embankment. So we're having a whole lot of water that we're not used to in Alabama. So you got to take that into account in everything that you do. And you know, some things that we see sometimes with this much water is sinkholes and other things. So. Yeah,
and until we have a chance for it to properly dry out, every small rainfall has a more significant impact than it would normally have.
Absolutely, and I don't know how much rain we've gotten, but we'll just do it in Alabama measurements, a whole bunch.
There you go.
So,
all right, well, let's talk about what our viewers have done despite the rain.
All right, 4 arrests this week brings our count up to 4,534 people arrested because you were willing to help. Thank you so much.
All right, so we do greatly appreciate all of your help, and we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the first half of this week's lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.
Hi, I'm Kelly Nelson with the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office. Did you know that scammers follow the news? They look for ways to take advantage of you during times of crisis. With the coronavirus in the news, scammers will be setting up websites to promote awareness and prevention tips and fake information about the illness, and maybe how it affects your community. They might even call you on the phone. They may also be asking you to donate to victims, offering advice, and even breakthrough vaccines and medications you could purchase. Don't click on any link in an email. It could be a download for a virus to your computer or device. For accurate information, check out the websites for the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization. These organizations will not call you on the phone, but you can call Nancy Hilton at the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office, 256-236-6600 for more information.
All right, let's get started with this week's lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. This week we start with Tammy Lee Varden of Lincoln, wanted on a bond revocation for possession of a controlled substance. Jason West of Anniston is wanted on bond revocation for possession of a controlled substance and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. Zelandria Perry of Anniston wanted on a failure to appear warrant for negotiating with a non-negotiable instrument, better known as passing bad checks. Troy Wilson of Coleman wanted on a failure to appear warrant for obstruction of government operations. Jonathan Griffith of Pell City is wanted on a failure to appear warrant for attempting to elude. And Franklin Howes of Gadsden is wanted on a failure to appear warrant for domestic violence, third-degree assault, and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. That's just the first half of this week's lineup. We'll have more for you in just a few minutes. If you have information about these cases, these criminals, please contact Calhoun County Crime Stoppers at 256-238-1414. All right, let's get some information here, Sheriff. It's time to welcome this week's guest onto the show, and it's somebody that's very familiar to the show, Jason Lindell from ASAP, the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention. So, Jason, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Always great to be here.
Sheriff, obviously, what he's working on is stuff that very much involves what you're working on.
Absolutely, and people talk about people abusing drugs and being in jail. I would venture to say most everybody in my jail, whether or not they're charged with a drug crime, have some type of substance abuse, and that's an underlying issue of why they're committing other crimes. So whether how you get started or any of that, it's affecting people's lives. So.
And I think that what you want to talk about specifically right now, Jason, isn't it opioids?
We've got an opioid roundtable coming up March 3rd at the Bridge. We had one about 6 months ago.
And the Bridge is the building at Anniston First United Methodist Church,
correct,
downtown Anniston.
Right there on Noble Street.
Mm-hmm.
We had one at Oxford Civic Center, and Sheriff was one of the panelists back then, trying to just get the community involved in recognizing issues going on, putting together partners in not only prevention but recovery and treatment.
Yeah, I've been doing this show with the Sheriff's Office for over 16 years now. I think I'm fairly up to date on what's happening in the community in as far as crimes and illegal drugs and such. I was still absolutely floored when they came out recently with the number of opioids that have been prescribed, legally prescribed, not properly, but from actual prescriptions in Alabama the number is just incredible.
They are staggering. I wish I've got a book, and it's called, it's Dreamland, and it's the true story of the American opioid epidemic. And it's staggering how you could go in for a little bit of pain and walk out with Oxycontin, things that are highly, highly addictive if you're not careful. So it is.
And I personally have known several people that's had a car accident, hurt their back or something like that, and that ended up getting addicted to opioids, and it's ruined their life. And after the last opioid roundtable, I put something on social media about it, and I got really attacked by some people, about leaving their medicine alone. And what's scary is, yes, a doctor can prescribe you something. It still doesn't mean that it can't be harmful to you, addictive, and once you're addicted, it lends to being misused. Once you start, you can't stop, kind of deal. So, we want people to be treated by doctors and get the proper medication on whatever it is. We just don't want to see people ruin their lives.
Absolutely.
Or their lives cut short because of addiction.
Very much so.
Yeah, I'm going to admit that there was a time in my life where I was a very judgmental person when it came to these drugs. The thoughts that I had about people that were addicted to them were not friendly thoughts. And then I've seen with some people in my own life, including my wife, when our son William was born, when we got back from the hospital, I did a poor job as a husband and did not get out first thing and get the refills on her prescriptions. And she started in withdrawals, and I was able to get what she needed to work her off that slowly. But we had an eye-opening moment there of she was not in hospital for a long time. This was something that just over a couple of days, and there she is already suffering withdrawals. And you see this happens to anybody in any walk of life very quickly, and then if it's not handled properly, it gets out of control before you have a clue.
I don't think anybody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to be addicted to a drug. I'm going to be a substance abuser, and that's how I want to live my life. I don't think anybody says, hey, I want to mess my life up and be addicted to drugs. It just happens, and that's what we're trying to do with this roundtable, is to try to bring up that discussion so we can keep people from getting to the point where they go, hey, I'm addicted and I can't quit. I can't quit drinking Diet Cokes. I've said that many times. I could only imagine if it was something like an opioid or something so much more powerful than a soda. So
the analogy I use with my middle schoolers is, if you've ever been fishing before, if you've ever been hooked by a lure, yes, does it hurt going in? Absolutely. But does it hurt worse going in, or does it hurt worse coming out? And if you're not careful, some of these they can grab onto you and they don't let go real quick.
At the same time, though, we want to make sure that people understand that there is a road to recovery, and I have also seen people that had been given up on by their loved ones who have turned their lives around and are now leading some of the best lives of anybody I know, that are happy, joyful, loving their lives. And so we want to make sure that we talk a little bit about that as well, the positive outcomes that can be there regardless of where you are in your life right now. We need to take a quick break, but we want to talk some more about this in just a few moments here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. All right, here we go with the second half of this week's lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Ashley Whitman of Ozark is wanted on a probation violation for fraudulent use of a credit card. Brian Bentley of Talladega is wanted on a failure to appear warrant for possession of marijuana, first degree. Bradley Newell of Piedmont wanted on a failure to appear warrant for tampering with physical evidence and attempting to elude. Shaquandra Alford of Forest Park, Georgia wanted for failure to pay for possession of a forged instrument, second degree. Marissa Mobbs of Center is wanted on a failure to appear warrant for use and possession of drug paraphernalia. Jamie Bird of Anniston wanted on a failure to appear warrant for trafficking heroin and resisting arrest. And Daniel Cornwell of Anniston is wanted on a probation violation for promoting prison contraband. If you have information about anyone in this video, please contact Calhoun County Crime Stoppers at 256-238-1414. We'll have some property crimes that we need your help with coming up in just a few minutes. We'll talk about some property crimes in a few minutes, but right now we're talking with Jason Lindell of the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention. And we've got the opioid roundtable coming up here at the beginning of March. And Jason, this is something that a lot of people who are in the profession that need to know about opioids and other drugs for their professional purposes, they can get some continuing education credits for this.
Absolutely.
But it's also something that's very valuable for just regular citizens of the area that want to know about what's happening in their community and what they can do if they or a loved one is facing with an opioid issue.
We have people who call the office of my individual family member is hooked to the what do I do? Mm-hmm. We're a prevention agency. Our job is to educate beforehand, but we've partnered with different agencies in Calhoun County and surrounding counties to try to get information. Bradford, JSU's Collegiate Recovery, Ross. So all these will have booths, will have education, because the more you know, the better educated decisions you can make for your family.
And Sheriff, I know that you've got a lot of good information that people could benefit from, but people are probably sometimes shy about asking you and your deputies for obvious reasons.
You know, a lot of times when it gets to us, it's a criminal issue, but my goal is that if somebody needed help, to get them help. And a lot of times they're not willing to do that until it gets to a point of criminal status or freedom. And that does work sometimes, where people will get straight once they get that shock of an arrest, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think the main thing in treatment for substance abuse is never give up, keep trying. It might be the 10th time somebody goes to rehab that it works. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the big deal. But having knowledge is power. My son injured his back in 9th grade, and we've purposely made sure that we don't get him any kind of narcotics, nothing more than an ibuprofen, because it scares me to death that my son might get addicted to those, and his whole life could be ruined because of it. So
my dad had back surgery not too long ago, and he had some very strong prescription medicines that were given to him. He was also told to use some over-the-counter medications, and we actually discovered that in many cases the over-the-counter medications that were not addictive got him better relief than the addictive medicines.
Ibuprofen, when I had shoulder surgery, ibuprofen 800 worked better for me. I took like one time of it. It just made me sleepy. And I took the ibuprofen 800. It helped with the swelling, helped me better. My concern is people not ruining their lives. And a lot of people, I think, well, the doctor gave it to me. The doctor knows best. And I'm not saying doctors don't know what's good for you, but you just have to be very careful in how you do things.
We always say pay attention to how it makes you feel. Whether the doctor prescribes it, whether it be surgery or something that we go in, because always pay attention to how it makes you feel.
And when you're dealing with your doctor, they deal with a lot of patients. And it's not that they don't want to give you every bit of attention that they can, but they've got things going on. It's up to us to work with our doctor. Don't just listen to your doctor and take what they say as the absolute, Bible of what you need to do.
Be active in your treatment.
Talk with them and say, well, doctor, I understand this is what you're saying. Here's why I wonder if there might be a different path that's better for me. And they'll listen to that, and they'll give you advice that is good for you.
Absolutely, yeah. They're only as good as the information you give them. Mm-hmm. So, and then like you said, that open, but don't be afraid for that open and honest dialogue that, hey, this pain medicine's not helping. And most of us, we think, well, if one's not enough, maybe two's better. Don't go down that road.
All right, well, Jason, your job is prevention.
Mm-hmm.
We're about out of time, but if there is just one piece of advice you could give people to help prevent drugs from taking a hold in your family, what would that be?
The one I tell my middle schoolers is don't put anything in your body, you don't know where it's been. Don't put anything in your body that was not prescribed for you. To me, it's common sense, but unfortunately nowadays sometimes it's not so common anymore. Those are the two that I hear myself each and every day dealing with my middle schoolers.
Again, the round table is coming up. What are the details on that?
March 3rd, Tuesday, March 3rd from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Free food, Modest Pizza. We'll have plenty of foods.
Talk about addicting.
So, continuing ed, if you're a nurse, counselor, there are going to be continuing. I think maybe law enforcement, I'm not 100% sure. But
we're easy. If it's good for nurses, we'll be good.
The continuing ed hours as well, but right there at the bridge at the United Methodist Church that on Noble Street.
Great. Well, Jason, thank you very much for being here, and good luck with the
appreciate you guys.
All right. Sheriff and I will be back in just a few moments. We'll have the Crime Stopper segment of the show and our Crazy Criminal of the Week on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. All right, let's see if you can help us out with any of these recent property crimes. On February 6th, a home on Gilbert's Ferry Road in Ohatchee was burglarized. A Glock handgun, a large quantity of jewelry, and medication as well were stolen. Between January 27th and February 1st, a home was illegally entered on Riches Lane in Jacksonville. Miscellaneous hand tools and power tools, some family pictures, and also assorted military awards were taken. Between January 20th and January 27th, a white 2007 Kawasaki Prairie four-wheeler was stolen from a residence on Benefield Gap Road in Piedmont. If you have any information about these crimes or others, please contact Calhoun County Crime Stoppers at 256-238-1414.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
All right, so Sheriff, our crazy criminal this week is Juan Zamora of Kissimmee, Florida. And
I don't think I want to see any more of
it. He's a drunk driver who pulled over a police officer.
That's awesome. How did he accomplish that? There's got to be something that he did.
He flashed his light. He's driving behind a police officer, a marked patrol car, and he wants to know how to get to an auto parts store, so he flashes his lights, gets the police officer to pull over.
I've had that happen before. To me personally, I've arrested a guy that was behind me that was tailgating me, so I pulled over, and he pulled over behind me. I got out and said, "Can I help you?" And he was drunk as all get out. He wanted to know if I needed help.
Yep. So Juan, when the police officer says, "I think I need to give you a breathalyzer," he said, "You didn't pull me over. I pulled you over."
Did you say his name was Juan?
Yeah.
911?
Yeah. He should have called somebody else to get his directions. But no, again, we're glad in this case that he did pull over the police officer, and the police officer pulled over and listened to him because we got a drunk driver off the roads.
Absolutely.
All right. So, anyway.
Good job, Juan.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope you also got your car fixed and that somebody else will be driving it for a while. All right, that's all the time that we've got for this week. We'll be looking for you again next week, but hopefully not in the lineup on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.